Welcome to Lasea class. I am your teacher, Jan Lasea. Today, let us learn the Android graphical user interface control called Spinner. Spinners provide a quick way to select one value from a set. In the default state, a spinner shows its currently selected value. Touching the spinner displays a drop-down menu with all other available values, from which the user can select a new one. The spinner is the equivalent of the combo box graphical user interface control. This is the physical appearance of the spinner, and it is a combo box graphical user interface control. When you touch or click it, it displays a drop-down menu that the user can select one value. You can add a spinner to your layout with the spinner object. You should usually do so in your XML layout with a spinner element. For example, here is the XML layout code for the spinner element. It begins with a less than character followed by the keyword spinner. And then you need to assign a identification. Here in this case, the identification name is spinner prepaid card. And alongside with the properties that you can set upon. When you switch from XML to graphical layout view, on the palette toolbox, under the form widgets, you can drag and drop the spinner GUI control to your design layout. To populate the spinner with a list of choices, you then need to specify a spinner adapter. The choices you provide for the spinner can come from any source, but must be provided through an spinner adapter, such as an array adapter or a string array. Here is an example of a XML file containing XML that contains the definition of the values that it will populate the spinner. That it will contain the following items to be selected by the user, such as 100, 300, 500, 1000. To populate the spinner with a set of values, we must create a XML file that contains an array of string values by following this format. First, write the XML header followed by the resources element tag followed by string array tag with a name value. You then specify the string array name. In this example, it is named denominations. To place the set of values, we place each value between the item and /item pair of tags. And then save this file inside the res values folder. Here in this example, I saved this XML definition of the values to contain within the spinner denominations.xml. This is the layout design of the laboratory hands-on activity number 5, entitled Spinner, on page 43 of your laboratory manual. The layout uses the table layout, and it has 4 rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. The first table row contains a text view that displays the title of the application, which is Spinner. The second table row contains the text view and the spinner that contains this label and then the spinner. The user will select a prepaid card denomination value. The third table row contains a text view that displays a feedback about the prepaid card denomination value selected from the spinner. Finally, the fourth and last table row contains an exit button. I name the object name for the spinner as spinner prepaid card. I name the object ID name for the third table row text view as LBL spinner value. I name the object name ID for the exit button as BTN exit. I chose these three GUI controls because I wanted to access them in my Java code. I wanted to know what is the value selected by the user from the spinner. That's why I need to name the ID of this spinner GUI control. Likewise, I like to display a message or feedback the denomination that was selected by the user. That's why I name this ID LBL spinner value for this text view. And then finally, I wanted to bind a click event whenever the user click the exit button, and that's why I named the ID object of this exit button BTN exit. Let us look and understand some of the written Java codes for this laboratory hands-on activity number 5. The Android Eclipse IDE wrote some commands such as package.com.bsu.spinner and import android.app.activity. We need also to insert some commands not shown in your Eclipse IDE upon creating a new Android project. Let me emphasize the three import commands need to write for the use of the spinner GUI control, and these are the following: import android.widget.adapter view. Another is import android.widget.arrayAdapter. And then import android.widget.spinner. The class main inherits the parent class name activity and must implement the interface name dialog interface.onClick listener or the onClick event handler of the dialog builder or the message box buttons yes and no. In my codes, I wanted to access the value selected from the spinner. That's why I declared an object named spinner denominations using the spinner class. I wanted to set or display the feedback in the text view ID name LBL spinner value. That's why I declared an object name LBL spinner value, which is similar name with the text view ID name LBL spinner value using the text view class. I wanted to bind an exit command to terminate my mobile application whenever the user touch or click the exit button. That's why I declared an object name btn exit using the button class. I wanted to display a confirmation box. Do you want to quit? Yes or no? That's why I declared an object name message box using the alert dialog builder class. Inside the onCreate method, the command setContentView is set to r.layout.main and it is generated by the Eclipse IDE. I instantiated the object LBL spinner value in this line. LBL spinner value is equal to data type casting text view, the method call find view by ID, and then I supplied a constant value r.id.lbl spinner value. I instantiated the object spinner denominations in this line. Spinner denominations is equal to the data type casting spinner class, the method call find view by ID, and then the argument r.id.spinner prepaid card. This command this command line will create an array adapter using the string array and a default spinner layout. Array adapter car sequence. I declared an object name adapter denomination is equal to array adapter that create from resource. This pointer name this, which is referring to the class main in object-oriented programming. The second argument is r.array.denominations. This denomination is the name of the string array that I define in that denomination.xml file. And then android.r.layout.simple underscore spinner underscore item. This command line will specify the layout to use when the list of choices appears. Adapter denomination that set drop down view resource, and then I supplied a argument android.r.layout.simple underscore spinner underscore drop down underscore item, and it will show like this. Whenever you touch or click the spinner, it will display a drop down menu. This command line place a default value. This command line will specify the layout to use when the list of choices appear. This command line spinner denominations that set adapter, and then adapter denomination will apply the adapter to the spinner. And then finally, this command line spinner denominations that set selection, I place a argument which is index 0, place a default value in the spinner. The 0 is the first index of the string array, and these are the contents of the spinner value: 100, 300, 500, 1000. And then it is a array of string. If I wanted to set a default value of the spinner, I call the method setSelection using the object spinner denomination. I place or I indicate the array index, which is 0, which is the value 100. If you wanted to set a default value of 300, therefore set the index to 1. So the indexes begins at 0 and then followed by 1, 2, and then 3, because it is a string array. The set on item selected listener event handler of the spinner is where we bind code to determine the item selected. This command line lbl spinner value dot set text, you have selected string concatenator plus parent dot get item at position, the variable pos to string concatenator plus, and then the string denomination will retrieve the selected item from the spinner. This parent dot get item at position with a argument of a integer index will retrieve the selected item from the spinner and displays at the text view with the ID name lbl spinner value. The command parent.getItem at position and then pos to string will access the item value selected from the spinner GUI control. I instantiated the object name btnexit. In this line, btnexit is equal to data type casting, button class, method call, find view by ID, argument r.id.btnexit. The set on click listener, this code is another way to bind a code to any button that you want to perform an action whenever the user touches or click a button. The example code in the time deposit activity, um, you need to that I implemented in the past. I did not wrote like this to bind a click event on any button. Instead, I use a interface, and all buttons will proceed to the on click whenever the user touch or click any button. And then inside of it, you need to use a decision statement. If the button is btn exit, do this action. If the button is btn compute, do this action. Here is another way to bind a on-click event to a specified button, which is the button exit only. So, in the on-click method event handler, when the user touches the exit button, it will call the line message box that show, and it will display this confirmation box. Do you want to quit? Yes or no? The following lines will set up the alert message box or confirmation box. The line message box that set icon are drawable .ic underscore launcher. Will display the Android mobile app icon, which is this one in this example, inside the message box or the confirmation box. If this line causes a syntax error, and then you choose a MIP map as a appearance of your icon when you made a new Android project, then change that drawable to MIP map so that it will solve the problem. I encounter some of your solution when I check your code. It will not compile properly because the causes of error is in this line, and I look at your folder res under layout that the drawable folder does not contain the PNG file IC underscore launcher, but it was placed under the MIP map folder. So when I change that drawable to MIP map, it does not anymore causes a syntax error, and it will compile properly. The class main implements the interface dialog interface that on-click listener that I explained in the previous slide. This interface is a contract that the contract is that mandatory that we need to fulfill the operation of that dialog interface, and that contract of that interface is that mandatory we need to write the definition of a method called onClick for the dialog interface only, not for any buttons. The btn exit will not use this method onClick. It is used exclusively for the dialog interface, which are the buttons yes or no of the confirmation box or the message box or the alert dialog message box. Inside this method onClick, we have a if then else statement. When the user read the question, do you want to quit, and then chooses yes, therefore the CPU will go to the method onClick of this alert dialog box, and then it will compile the value of I if it is equal to the button positive. If I click yes, therefore it will call the method finish, and it will terminate our Android mobile app. Otherwise, if the user touch the no button, therefore it does not do anything. It will not yet terminate our mobile app. The method onKeyDown intercepts user touches or clicking the smartphone back button or home button. Our smartphone has special buttons like our modern smartphone. The appearance of a back button right now is a triangle that points to the left, which is this one. Whereas the home button, the appearance is a circle. Every time that we click a back button, it will immediately terminate our mobile app. We can bind a code in this on key down event and then um, evaluate if that type of button is the back button. And if the user click the back button, therefore, it will not immediately terminate our mobile app, but instead, it will show a confirmation box first. That's why it will call this line message box that show, and it will appear this confirmation box. Do you want to quit? Yes or no? So that it is formal and user friendly before it will terminate. So that when we accidentally click the back button, it will not yet immediately terminate. It will first prompt the user if he really wanted to quit or not. Using the Eclipse IDE, let us perform the laboratory hands-on activity number 5, and let us create a new Android project. I click the File menu, point to New, and then select Android Application Project. I specify the application name Spinner. I will modify the package name to com.bsu.spinner. I will set the minimum required SDK to Android 4.0, target SDK to Android 4.2, compiled with Android 4.2, and then I will choose the theme Holo Light, and then click the next button. I will click again the next button. I will assign a image file for the mobile icon, which is this file, and then click open, and then click the next button. I will choose a blank activity and check the create activity. Click next button. I will modify the activity name to capital M, main, layout name to small letters, main, and then click the finish button. Let us wait to load and display the graphical layout of our mobile application. Let us zoom in the graphical layout. I will select this text view and then press the delete. And then I will modify the layout from relative layout to table layout by right clicking, and then a menu, context menu will pop up, and I will select change layout. I will choose a new layout, table layout, and then click OK. Before we continue, let us make our mobile application full screen. I go to the values-11 and then open up the styles.xml. I will modify the parent to theme light, theme.light, and then close. I go to the values-b-14 and then open up the styles.xml and then modify the parent to theme.light, no title bar, full screen. And then I press Ctrl S to save and then close this styles.xml. Now that our mobile app is full screen, to maximize this space, let us change the color of the table layout. I click this table layout, and then I will go to the properties, and then I will specify a background color to blue, and then press the enter key. Not green but blue. Next to that, I will specify a value for the stretch columns to 1. Let us add a row. I click this button to add a table row. And we can see in our outline the added table row. I click the table row so that it will indicate the table row, which is this rectangle. Let us place a text view. I will choose a large text view and then drag and drop. I will modify the text to spinner, and that will be the title of our mobile application. I will change the text color to yellow. And let us modify the text style, set it to bold. And then after that, I will make this text view center by selecting the table row number 1, and then go to the property name gravity, and then select center. Next, I will click below so that I can add a new row by clicking this button, add table row, and this will be the table row number 2. Let us place a text view. I will modify the text to prepaid card. I will change the color to green. I will set the text size to 14 SP. And then I will set the text style to bold. And then after that, we will place on the right side of that text view a spinner. So from the palette form widgets, I will drag and drop a spinner to the table row number 2, just beside the prepaid card label. I go to the properties name ID. I will name that spinner to spinner prepaid card. And then I press the enter key, and then I click the yes, and then click OK, spinner prepaid card. Next to that, I will select the prepaid card text view, and then modify the layout. The layout width I will set to 0 dp. The weight, the layout weight will be set to 1. I select the prepaid, and then also the layout width I will set to 0 dp. The weight, the layout weight, I set to 1. Next, I click below so that I can add a new row, table row number 3. I click the table row number 3, the newly added table row, and let us place a text view. I will place a text view. I will name the ID of that text view to LBL spinner value. And then I press the enter key, and then I click the yes and click OK button. I will set the layout width to 0 dp, the layout weight to 1. I will set the text color to green, and then the text you have selected, and then I will set the text size to 14 sp. I will also modify the layout width already modified to 0 dp, and then the height is 1. Next, I will click below so that I can add a new row, table row number 4. I select that from the outline so that I can see that table row number 4. I will place a button. I will drag and drop a button. I will name the ID of that button BTN exit. And then press the enter key, and then I click the yes and OK buttons. I will set the text to exit so that the button will be centered. I will select the table row number 4 and then modify the gravity to center. Now that we are done with the design layout of our mobile application, let us save, and then let us go to the values folder, and we will add a new XML that will contain the items to populate for the spinner. So I will right click the values folder and then point to new, and then select Android XML file. I will name the file denominations.xml and then click the next button. I will click the finish button. There are two ways how you could populate or set the values for the for the spinner. Either you can type it manually, or you can go to the resources tab and then click the add button. I will select the string array, and then I will name that string array to denominations, and then click the add button. I will click OK, and then I will type the first item 100 and then click add, and then click OK. I will type the second item 300 and then I click add and then click OK. I will type the next item 500 and then click add and then click OK. And then finally the last item 1000 and then click add and then click OK. Now we need to count that the number of items must be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there is a fifth item. We will remove it. So I select that fifth item and then click remove. And then click yes. We need to check the counter XML file for our design. So I click the denominations.xml file and then check thoroughly if the header is correct, the resources, string, array, and then I name it denominations, and then the values for the item 100, 300, 500, 1000, only 4. I think we are done with that. So let us click the save all, and we may now close this file, and then let us go to the Java code. I select or click the main.java. Since the code is lengthy, I will copy paste the ready-made code, but in your case you need to code them manually. For me, I have already coded it manually, so that it will be fast for me to encode. I simply copy and then paste it in the text editor. And this is now the code. So let me save, and then to compile, I right click the project file, Android project file, and then point to run as, and then click the Android application. The Android emulator already run because I already ran it ahead of time so that it will not be slow. By reading the console messages, it is trying to install the spinner.apk. The code and the entire file did not committed any syntax error. That's why it compiled the spinner.apk file and it tries to install. Now, if it will not run automatically, we can go to the Android apps of our Android emulator and run it manually. So I click this button to go to the Android mobile apps, and then here I simply run that spinner newly installed to run. So the default value selected is 100, and then the feedback you have selected 100 pesos denomination. If I touch the spinner, it will display a drop down menu. If I choose 1000, and then the feedback you have selected 1000 denomination. If I click the spinner and then select 500, the feedback you have selected 500 denomination. If I click the exit button, it will show the confirmation box. Do you want to quit yes or no? I select no. If I click the back button, the on key event, and then it will show the confirmation. Do you want to quit? And then I select yes. And that ends my demonstration. That ends our topic for today. I hope you are inspired in my class. Thank you for watching. God bless us.